What's up, everybody? It's been a while since I've done anything with Warhammer. I decided to cut in here real quick and make a recording about what's been going on the scene, right? There's a lot of things happening with Warhammer right now. There's been some rule changes. Some I'm kind of happy, some I'm not so happy with. But then there's also been announcements. There's armies dropping. So part of this is going to be about that. Squats are going up in value because they are releasing they're re-releasing the squats. They're remaking them. Games Workshop has been leaking, squat images. There's one out of the squat hover bike now, which is cool because squats were like bikers. They always had bikes and trikes. So that's been dropping all over the place. And I wanted to get the word out that if you want any of the old school squat models, you better get them now because they're going up in price. What players are going to try to do is get a hold of some of the old school Rogue Trader models if they can fit them into their army and they can have custom pieces, and they're 50 years old. For most players, that's a win-win-win. So I have seen the price of squats going up on eBay. I've seen the price of them going up online, because people are just anticipating that, hey, now that they're, dropping squats 2.0, more people are going to want this model, right? When you go play a game at your favorite hobby store or whatever, you have squats, and somebody that you're fighting, they also have squats too. It's really nice to put down a model that they're not going to have, that nobody else is going to have, because it's 40, 50 years old, especially if you can make it work with the new models. So not exactly sure how that's all going to work out. I think the newer squats are going to be a little bit bigger, but there's always ways around that. So I have quite a few chaos squats. That's what I was collecting. And along the way, I did manage to pick up some of the old school Rogue Trader squats. I actually got one of them on accident. So let's go on over here to my little setup where I've been working on this stuff. Still moving everything around in this house. So over here, I have some of the models that I've been trying to put together, right? And some of them actually have their first coat of paint on them. This beautiful blue that you see. Let's see this guy. So this blue paint, I don't know how well it shows up on the camera. It looks absolutely amazing. This is the painted model that I have. He does look great. He's professionally painted. The idea is to try to match up the rest of my models to this guy. I don't know how well you can see him, but he is rocking black armor, and everything else is like gold and detail. The axe, just everything looks amazing. So all of these guys, I want to paint them like kind of towards the same scheme. They're going to have a dark colored armor, so I decided to start with this super dark. It's called Black and Blue. By the way, I got to give credit where it's due. Shout out to Barbosa Rex. I do believe that's his name. I've butchered it before. He is a professional Gundam painter, and he has a YouTube channel, and you can look it up if you want. It's very easy to find. But what he does is he actually shows these paints that I don't know if he just had a hand in making these or if he's selling them or what the deal is. But I found out about these paints, Mecha Gundam, or Mecha Empire. I'm sorry, Mecha Gundam Empire. He shows off these paints, and he will actually use them. He will actually spray paint a spoon, and he will show you how the paint goes on and how it looks, which is absolutely awesome for anybody in this hobby, because a lot of times you go pick out a color and you start painting it and you're like, damn, this didn't dry and look how I wanted it to. It's not shiny enough. It doesn't have enough depth to it. I'm going to have to rework it now. I'm going to have to, so that happens when you are just picking paint out at a store, especially if you are somewhat new to the hobby and you haven't painted with a lot of these colors. So finding somebody that's actually going to sample these paints for you and spray them onto spoons and show you how to do it, it's helped me a lot. And I have this amazing color as a result of that. I would have never found this stuff otherwise, and it looks absolutely effing amazing. I am so glad I got 2 bottles of this one, because I just anticipated, like, if this works out, I'm gonna need a couple bottles of this, because this is going to be like the base color for a lot of my models. Another thing that I found through his channel are these primers. What's really amazing about these primers, what's this called? Stinries? I don't know. What's amazing about this primer, one of them is metallic. It is literally just like a metallic primer. You spray it on, and these guys have the metallic undercoat on them. I've also mixed it though with a flesh tone undercoat, this one, to make it a little bit darker. But I think they work very well. So amazing primers. I've never seen metallic primers from Games Workshop or anything else like that. They're very affordable. They come in a nice sized bottle. I think they're totally worth it. And I had no problem spraying the primer out of my spray gun. So that's what the primer looks like. And then of course I apply the black and blue on top of that. And you know, they start getting this dark blue color that also has like a shine to it. I really dig that. Now these models are by no means done, like by any means. I have one color on them. I still have to go through and I have to shade and highlight. I have to ink. So these models are going to look quite different when it's all said and done. But actually being able to see the blue on them and kind of compare it to this guy's black armor, I already know that once I fill in all the blanks, they'll match pretty good. Right, and my HQ units will still stand out, because instead of having really dark blue armor, their armor straight up black. And that makes sense, because if anybody knows anything about Custodes, Auramite armor is naturally gold, and the more you want to change that color, the more of a fortune it costs you. So it would make sense that the actual HQs have blackened armor, and the other Custodes, the other armor's not fully black. It would just cost too much. I don't know. I think it's going to work out pretty well. And I don't know if anybody noticed here, but we do have some squats. We have the squats that I was talking about. These are the only 2 squats that I have. I bought one of them by mistake. He was actually labeled as a chaos squat, and I really just should have looked at that, because this guy has like this spear pike thing. I think he's pretty cool because of that. Because a lot of the squats are supposed to go on bikes and trikes. So that should have been a dead giveaway. Regardless, the price was right. And this guy showed up, and I was like, well, he's still a pretty cool model. He's like one of these cosmic eggs of death, or whatever you want to call them. They do have this egg-like shape. I prefer the chaos squats. I just think they look really cool. But all in all, they're going to kind of look like this. These are the old school squats. I think it's an amazing sculpt for 50 years old. This is probably about how old these models are. So the guy in the front, I've talked about this before, this little guy right here. As you can see, I kind of had to make some kind of stand for them so they could slot in here. This guy is, I dare say, and I'll stick to it, this is the rarest squat you can get. This guy cost a fortune. Not even gonna lie, not even gonna deny it. It took me over a year just to find this one model. You can't find it in America. You have to have it imported. It's gonna cost you $30 just in shipping, and that's after you can actually find this guy and purchase him. I had to put my email out all over the place. It literally took a year for somebody to get back to me and be like, hey, I got one of these. So I snatched him up as fast as I could. And I've always liked this model. He is the only Type 2 squat that they ever made. If you compare him to the other squat, his face is different. His armor's different. He's got like this dish around his head. I always wondered what the deal was with that. I always wondered, like, is his armor incomplete? Is he supposed to have like a face mask like this guy that just like kind of covers everything right here? With a little bit of research, I found out that this was the Type 2 armor for the squats. This is the direction that they were going to go in, I would think. And his armor looks amazing. It really does. I'm sure the camera doesn't do it any justice, especially for a 50-year-old model. He looks stocky, he looks strong, he looks different. And they made him the standard bearer. Like, he actually has this top piece that goes on top of him, so he gets to hold the standard, right? And he comes with an amazing grenade launcher / machine gun / whatever this thing is that goes on his arm. All right, so there's the left arm, and the right arm just has this wicked little Warhammer on it. I've always liked the look of this Warhammer. I think that's part of what drew me in. He just has a cool looking Warhammer. Everything fits nice. It's going to fit nice when I'm done with it, obviously. Right? So there's a chaos squat. There's a squat, the rarest squat. So the reason I have him here is a while ago I was joking around and I was looking at this guy because, you know, he has this standard, and I was like, whoa, Custodes have Vexas. Vexas, here's a Custode Vexa that I've actually played with. He's made from, I believe, an ancient model, right? This guy is kit bashed as hell together. You can't really see too much of the details in him because, well, he's just covered in all of this blue. So until I actually paint him, he's just this shadowy figure, right? But these guys are actually really important for Custodes. They give off an amazing buff. Anybody within 6 inches of them counts as being in cover, or has +1 to their attack, or just, they do a lot of juicy things, and you want one for your army. Now, obviously, I wanted a custom one right off rip, which is why I started building this guy, right? He looks different, right? You're not going to find another Custodes Vexa that looks like this. And I was happy with this model for a short time. But then on my Vexa, I wanted to take the grenade launcher. It's a relic that the Vexa can take. And pretty much, the Vexa turns into like almost a heavy support unit with a short range. The grenade launcher doesn't shoot that far, but it has a high strength on it, and it can be damaging to tanks. And Vexas are typically the last things to be taken out. You know, you're going to have to kill all the shield guardians around them and everything that they're buffing first. So I was like, man, you know, having this guy with like a heavy weapon profile could really, really help. So that's what I started doing, and I was like, okay, how is this model right here going to have a grenade launcher? He just doesn't. He does not have one. It is not on the model. So I started actually just looking around for what I could do, and I was like, whoa, this squat literally has something that could be a grenade launcher, you know, or like some kind of gun like that. And I was like, could I make this squat into a Vexa, right? I started messing around with it a little bit. I think I talked about this a long time ago. This is where it's taken me, right? Obviously, this guy is way too short to be a Vexa. If I stand him up next to a Vexa, there's a problem there. Like, he goes up to his damn knee, right? So I need the model to at least somewhat match the measurements of the model that it's supposed to be. Right, and I do at least need to showcase that he has that relic grenade launcher. So this model's perfect for it. He has the standard to be a Vexa. He's got the grenade launcher, and he has a Warhammer that I just think is really cool. The thing is, how do you make this guy playable, right? And I started kind of building some kind of base to make him a little bit taller, right? So he could actually be used. He could be useful, because it would be unfair to run a squat as a Vexa and then be able to hide him anywhere because he's so tiny. Also, he started looking ridiculous on this base, right? This is the size of a base a Vexa has to have. They're big bases, and he just looked so tiny standing on this base. I'm like, what the hell can I do about it? And I looked over and I saw my other little squat, and I was like, wait, could I fit both of them onto a base? And I really started thinking about that, and I was like, well, let's think about the stats. I'm going to give this squat a custodian stat line. Does this little squat really look like he's strength 5, toughness 5, has 6 wounds, and has 7 attacks or whatever the hell it is? That's a lot to give to a squat, even if they are in type 2 amazing armor. So I thought, you know what, if I put both of these models on the same base, all of a sudden that's a little bit more believable, right? I could see 6 or 7 attacks between 2 squats and, you know, having to put 5 wounds on them to take them down. So that's kind of what I'm doing. That's what this model is going to be. That's why these guys are here. I'm assembling them for them to be my Vexa. Cannot wait to take them to a tournament and be the only custodian player that actually has some damn squats in his custodian army. I'm also setting up the backstory to actually explain how my ragtag squad of Custodes managed to come across some squats and managed to befriend them and win them over and, you know, actually make them a Vexa. So that is what I've been doing. And I figured since I was working on this, I should make a quick recording, giving out some shout outs over the paint in case anybody wants to find this amazing paint, and just letting everybody know if you're planning on getting a squad army in the future and you might be interested in some of the older models to make your force look unique, you might want to get them now because I anticipate that as they drop more and more squats, the prices are going to go up on the older squat models. And the reason I'm saying this is because I've already seen it. I'm already seeing it reflected on eBay and all these other places where you go to find these things. The prices are slowly going up, and it's something that I've really noticed since they have announced that they're actually bringing the squats back. So wanted to get that out there. If you think you're going to be into squats, if you're planning on collecting squats and you want your army to kind of be one of a kind and you want to throw some rogue trader models in there that nobody else is going to have, you might want to snatch them up now before their value, their price increases by 500% or whatever the hell it is, because that's just going to be what happens. I'm still collecting Chaos Squats, and I'm hoping that they bring Chaos Squats back because I have quite a nice little collection of those guys, especially the guys like these guys in their version of Terminator armor. I forget exactly what it's called, but it does look cool. They do look like nifty, wicked little models, and I think right now is the time to get them if you plan on getting any of them, right? And it's the age-old questions. Can 2 squats make a custodian? I guess they can. 2 squats are making a custodian here, and they are going to be a Vexa. I can't wait. It is going to be a heavy model, right? Because not only are these pewter models, these little stones that I've had to put here, at least I know they're not going anywhere once I put them on the table. So that's what I'm working on. Best of luck to everybody with their hobby endeavors. And if you guys have any awesome tips or tricks or anything that I missed, please, leave me a comment, let me know. Oh, on a side note, while I'm showcasing Custodes, I might as well give you my 2 cents on what I think about the nerfs that happen. So the Custodes got a nerf, and honestly, I'm totally down for half of it. But I think the way that Games Workshop did it, they screwed themselves. Just hear me out here. There was a complaint that the game wasn't as balanced. They had 4 armies in S rank, or S tier, we'll call it. The 4 armies at the top: Tyranids, Tau, Custodes, and Harlequin, right? These were the armies that were rocking tournaments. And Games Workshop goes, you know what? We'll change that. We will nerf Custodes. Now there's only 3 armies at the top in S tier. Custodes dropped by a tier. So I don't think that actually helps the power balance in the game. Instead of having 4 top tier armies to choose from now to compete with, there's now only 3 top tier armies. And as soon as I brought this point up online on some of the Warhammer channels, I had people challenge me instantly. And they're like, no, Custodes are going to be just fine. Watch, they're going to continue winning every tournament just like before. Since somebody, 2 people actually said that to me. I've been checking all of the tournaments, and Custodes are not winning shit. Okay, and I guess one could argue that some of the Custodes players changed over to Space Marines, who got a buff instead of a nerf. They have Armor of Contempt now, which doesn't make sense to me because now a 20-point Space Marine has a better armor rule than a 50-point Custodes. So I'm thinking maybe in the future, Custodes will also get Armor of Contempt when they get unnerfed and get brought back up to S tier so they can compete with the 3 or 4 other armies that are up there. But just personally, IMO, and I wanted to get this out there, I don't have a problem with them nerfing Trajan Valoris, the leader of the Custodes. He was getting used everywhere, and it was kind of cheap. I personally was never going to use Trajan. I have his model, but I'd rather build my old shield captain on jet bike with a freaking Warhammer. So the Trajan thing, okay, cool. And then bikes. They nerfed the shit out of bikes. Now bikes are not nowhere near as tough. They're not nowhere near as resilient. Which, okay, I can kind of deal with that because everybody was playing bikes. At the same time, when you're fighting an army that is like heavy support heavy, a lot of times these bikes are the only thing you have with their little missile launchers that are strength 8 to actually deal with an opponent's heavy support tanks and stuff like that. At least you could move your bikes up and get a few shots at a tank and bracket it, maybe kill it, before these guys got just destroyed because, you know, your enemy's going to focus fire on these guys. And now you can't use transhuman and like you can't shield them from a lot of things. I'm like, okay, I can deal with that. I can deal with that, even though that is kind of, it starts getting crunchy at that point. You know what I mean? Like, you're taking away one of our abilities to effectively take out other tanks. And I think this is the big problem that Custodes are going to have now because the next thing that they did, which I personally think is effing blasphemy, I will take the cut to Trajan. I will take the cut to the bikes, okay? No big deal. I only had like 3 or 4 bikes myself. I was planning on using them though. But the next thing they did is they took some of their powers like Emperor's Auspice that turns rerolls off, and they've made that once per game. And that's it. I think that is where they fucked up. Yeah, I'm dropping an F-bomb because that is how strongly I feel about it. When a Custodes force comes up against a Tau army now, or something that is super heavy weapon, super heavy support, an Eldar army with prism cannons. And the reason I bring that up specifically is because I fought against one. I fought against an Eldar army that had like 4 prism tanks. 3 of them would be hidden behind a building. 1 of them would stick out to shoot you, and all 4 of those tanks can take their shots through the one tank. It's called linked fire. And when they do that, they get to reroll everything. They get to reroll hits, they get to reroll wound rolls. So if you don't have something like Emperor's Auspice that can turn rerolls off, you're dead, okay? You're dead, okay? I don't care which Custodians it is. When you have 4 fire prism tanks firing at them with full rerolls on hits and to wounds, I think one of them even like gets around invulnerable saves. I'm not sure, or maybe they could spend a CP for that. Regardless, the only way to survive that is to use Emperor's Auspice and turn off those rerolls. Are you going to get away scot-free? No. Now, here's your unit of Custodes. Say there's 4 of them, right? Okay. That Eldar tank formation shoots at you. If you use Emperor's Auspice, okay, you'll lose 1 guy. Maybe 2. If you don't use Emperor's Auspice, your whole squad is wiped. And by the way, this is 200 points of Custodes. So that tank just paid for itself by shooting these guys, and you are now losing. You have just probably lost half of the units in your entire army. So now that becomes a huge problem, because on turn 1, when these tanks shoot at me, I'm going to use Emperor's Auspice, and I'm going to turn rerolls off so that maybe 1 or 2 of my guys can survive and do something. Now Emperor's Auspice is once per game. So in that same scenario, I would use Emperor's Auspice and maybe only lose 1 or 2 guys. And then after that, turn number 2 and 3, pretty much every turn, they're going to be taking out a full squad of Custodes. So I don't know what a Custodes force can really do against a straight up Fire Prism setup. I would imagine there'd be the same thing with some of the heavy support Tau setups where you're just getting railgun to shit and you can't turn rerolls off. The other thing too with bikes, I think they can only use transhuman once per game. Transhuman means that when you hit me, you have to roll a 4, 5, or 6 to actually wound me. And since most things that are shooting at these bikes are going to be like heavy support things, bigger guns, a lot of times these bikes are going to get wounded on a 2-up. And that makes you more resilient because now they have to roll a 4, 5, or 6 to wound you instead of a 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. So it turns damn near instant wounds into only half the wounds. And bikes can only do that once per game now. Or they might not even be able to do it at all. Like at that point, after finding out about that, I had such a raging headache that I couldn't even I couldn't even continue to fathom like what the hell bikes are going to do now when they're getting shot at by anything that's actually worthy of shooting at them. You can't turn off rerolls, right? You auspice once per game, and then the whole transhuman thing. I think that's where they broke the Custodes. I think that the Custodes dropped a tier just because of that, because of Emperor's Auspice and because of, these once per game abilities now. And it makes no sense because Space Marines can use transhuman all they want, right? Other armies that have abilities like this, they can use them all effing long day and it's no big deal. But Custodes, the creme de creme of the Emperor, these units that are literally like supposed to be some of the best fighters in the universe, they can only do it once per game. That just absolutely makes no sense. And now a 20-point Space Marine model has an advanced armor rule that these guys don't get. All of it adds up to Custodes really dropping a tier. So I'm still going to play them. I have a bunch of the Sagittarium Custodes. These guys did not get a nerf, so thank goodness. I have 5 more of these guys to make. I only built 5 of them because I was only using 5 at a time, but after these new nerfs, these are going to be like my go-to troops. So thank goodness I managed to get 10 of them for $40 a long time ago. If I find another deal like that, I am most definitely getting it. I'd also like to see how the Custodes now match up against what are they called? The Chaos Knights and the Imperial Knights, the giant freaking, knights that they're releasing right now. I'm assuming they're not going to do that great since one of the biggest advantages Custodes had were we'll take a bunch of bikes and we'll put missile launcher salvos on them that are at least strength 8 so we could actually hurt these things. There's not a lot of things in the Custodian army. There's not a lot of weapons that actually have a super high strength profile. Like, there's just not. I think strength 8 is like as strong as these salvos get. Don't get me wrong, Custodes can have like strength 10 and up in close quarters combat with the Watcher's Axe and stuff like that. But as far as shooting goes, Custodes actually have a pretty short range and they don't have many weapons with a high strength. And I get that, but now I don't feel like they are tanky enough to hold their ground long enough for their low strength weapons to be effective. Especially, what are you supposed to do about Tyranids, Carniflexes, and big nasty bugs like that are toughness 8, right? They're toughness 8, so you need strength 8 to feasibly wound them. And the bikes that have strength 8 guns all just got nerfed so freaking bad that you're probably not going to be able to keep them on the table long enough for them to be as effective as you want them. That's just the way that I'm looking at it. Now, I did have a game with these Custodes. It was a very low point battle, and it was against Harlequin. It's a different kind of monster. That game actually did go my way, just barely, but it was close. It was only like a 500-point game. I won off of objectives, but I'll be perfectly honest with you guys. My opponent slipped up a little bit. And I think if it wasn't for that, I would have lost. Because pretty much what my opponent did is, in fact, here is some of his Harlequin here. What my opponent did is he put his Death Jester in this transport, and he was flying around shooting at me. But the problem is he pulled this thing right up to my Custodes, and then he shot and got everybody into close quarters combat. So that just, I honestly think if I didn't get this guy into close quarters combat, like if he would have just chilled over here the whole time and just kept shooting at everything on the table instead of getting into close quarters combat with me, I think the Harlequin player would have been much better off. Or he could have actually swapped this guy for a close combat unit. I forget what they're called, but this is like the sniper variant of it. And I also took secondaries that gave me more points for killing his HQs and his psychers. So he pretty much fed me one of these characters, and I scored a few extra points off of that. But I honestly think this game could have went much, much different, and I think it will next. I think the next thing that we're going to do is like a 700 or 800 point game. I'm going to see if I can get my little bro, because he has Death Guard. It'll be nice to play against some Death Guard, but he says he has to get caught up on all the rules and everything. So I'm just over here working on what I got, and I wanted to talk about some 40K, let you guys know what I was working on, what's going on. And what I'm hearing from the scene. And I guess my official word is, if you're going to be into squats, go look up some of the older models now while you still have a chance to feasibly get them, because pretty soon you probably won't, right? So best of luck to anybody and everybody. We all need it in this game, especially if you are trying to purchase some of those Chaos Knights right now. I think Games Workshop wanted like $400 for a box of them, which comes with the codex. So I don't think I'm going to do all that. I think I'm going to buy my knights separately, right? I have somebody overseas that's working on that whole situation right now. We're going to see if we can get the price of those Chaos Knights way, way down from, $200 a model down to like $50, $60. And if that's the case, then I'll bite. And until then, I'm going to keep working on these. Shout out to Barbosa Rex and the amazing paints that he makes. Guys, if you really want good paints, look him up and watch his videos, because he will not only show you the paint, he'll show you how to apply it. He'll show you what you need to mix it with. Some of these paints need to be diluted. You need to put like Air Force thinner in it. Other paints don't. And anyone that's actually learning how to paint, you're going to want to learn proper paint form. Like, you're going to want to be able to look at your paint and say, how thick is this? Is my gun going to be able to spray this? Do I need to apply more air pressure for a better spray? Or do I need to thin this paint? I've learned a lot of that stuff just watching this guy's channel. And it's nice when he pulls these paints out and actually sprays them onto a spoon, and you can see in high detail how the paint's going to look. So check out Barbosa Rex. That's where I'm getting these paints from. And since he paints these Gundams, like we're pretty much in the same hobby when it comes to painting. So it's nice to see all the advanced tips and tricks that this guy gives. Not to mention these paints, like, these paints are going to work just as they are described and shown in the videos. And the price on them is not crazy, ridiculous, stupid like you would think. They're actually very well priced, I think. Like, I don't think this cost me an arm and a leg. Matter of fact, I'm probably going to get more of this one. So very happy with that overall. Shout out to all my Warhammer players out there, people keeping the hobby alive. And best of luck to all of you, and I will see you out there, right? Later, everybody.